Ma'am, step away from the woman and keep your hands visible. That was the first thing my wife Sarah heard that morning while she was tying her shoelace on our front lawn minding her own business. She looks up half confused, half amused, and sees two patrol officers staring her down, hands hovering over their holsters like she's about to rob a bank in her own yard. There, she is calm as a breeze in her old jogger's hoodie, an illegally holstered sidearm at her hip. Sarah's never been one to hide who she is. The moment one cop mutters, "Suspect is armed, female, possible threat, neighborhood complaint," the other's eyes flick to the badge clipped to Sarah's waistband, and then the real panic kicks in, not from Sarah but from them. They step back like they just seen a ghost. Chief Bennett. Wait, your Chief Sarah Bennett? Oh my god. And they're just across the street standing smug with her little dog, and her phone is Karen Franklin, the queen bee of the HOA, giving play-by-play into her phone like she's running a reality show. She has no idea she just falsely accused the chief of police of being a gun-wielding maniac. She just committed a felony and she doesn't even know it yet. But let me tell you, this insanity didn't start that morning. Karen's been on a one-woman crusade since the day she wrangled her way into that HOA seat, third term running thanks to some convenient barbecue bribes and a mysteriously low voter turnout. Suddenly she's out here tossing fines like parade candy. Grass too long, $25, kids chalk art 50. Christmas lights in January 100. But her new obsession, a so-called rule about visible firearms. She claims it makes people uncomfortable. Never mind, this is a state where open carry is legal, and Sarah makes everyone feel safer, especially after last fall's string of burglaries. But Karen didn't care. She wasn't seeing protection. She saw someone challenging her throne 2 days before all this. She marches into our yard while Sarah's oiling garden tools and flatly declares, "You'll be fined $500 a day for that weapon in public view." Sarah explains, patient as ever, that she's off duty, well within her rights, and the HOA has no business regulating this anyway. Karen sniffs, that might be true for civilians, but I expect better from someone in your position. You're supposed to set an example, not look like you're ready for a gunfight. Sarah just smiles. I am setting an example, one that respects the law, not your fantasy rulebook. Karen storms off yelling, "I'll fix this." Which of course means she's about to make it 10 times worse. So there we are. 2 days later, Karen calls 911. The second Sarah steps outside with her holster, cops show up, see the badge, and their whole attitude does a 181, stammering apologies. The other's red-faced and Sarah, steady as ever, says, "You're just doing your job, but now I have to do mine." Karen's across the street, jaw slack, watching her plan collapse. Sarah tells her, "You filed a false police report about an armed threat. That's a crime." Karen's blinking so hard she looks like she's about to short circuit. "I didn't know it was you. You weren't in uniform. How was I supposed to know?" Sarah answers, "That's why you don't make those calls unless you know what you're seeing. You put neighbors at risk, you put officers at risk. And now you answer for that." That night our doorbell rings. Not one but 6 neighbors show up, arms full of brownies, pie, a case of soda, telling us, "We saw everything. That woman is nuts. What can we do to help?" The support hits Sarah hard. She's never liked the spotlight, even as chief, but now the whole neighborhood sees her for what she is, a protector with nerves of steel, zero tolerance for bullies, you know what I mean. But Karen isn't done. She drops a newsletter accusing Sarah of threatening her, painting herself the victim, hinting Sarah's abusing power. Sarah doesn't reply. She files a formal complaint with the city attorney, forwards the 911 transcript, body cam footage. She's warned off duty ever since the rumor started that week. City council holds a closed-door meeting with Sarah. She lays it all out, footage, harassment, the weird policies Karen's enforcing, even anonymous letters warning people not to talk to certain neighbors, all traced back to HOA mailers. One council member says, "I thought HOA was about landscaping and bake sales, not turning into North Korea." Meanwhile, Karen's still convinced she's untouchable, hosts an emergency HOA meeting to propose her ban on visible weapons, quoting her own 911 call as proof. This time residents push back. Greg, who barely ever speaks, stands up. "You lied to police about the police chief. You endangered everyone. Lucky we're not voting you out tonight." Karen turns beet red. Even her VP is sliding away from her. He whispers something in Karen's face, freezes. The tide is turning, but Karen's ego is a fortress. She starts digging. Calls a reporter to leak her side. What she doesn't know is that reporter's kid was once rescued from a house fire by Sarah. Instead of a smear piece, the story is about HOA abuse and Sarah's integrity through it all. Sarah stays calm, never stoops to Karen's level. She just keeps documenting. The whole neighborhood's buzzing. Karen doubles down, sends a glossy newsletter to every mailbox, trying to rewrite history, painting herself as a civilian barely escaping a traumatic encounter. She's careful not to use Sarah's name, but everyone knows. Then at the city's public safety meeting packed with officials, journalists, Sarah stands up, lays out the facts. No theatrics, just the transcript, the newsletter, the law. She plays a snippet of Karen's frantic 911 call, and the room goes dead silent. The mayor asks, "You're saying this was knowingly made against a law-abiding officer?" Sarah nods. She knew who I was and called anyway. This wasn't fear, this was control disguised as panic. The fallout is immediate. The mayor orders an internal review of HOAs citywide, and the city attorney starts investigating enforcement policies. And maybe the best twist, Daniel Wu, the HOA VP, confides in Sarah. He's been bulldozed by Karen for a year. He writes a statement to the city clerk exposing Karen's personal vendetta, her fake fines, her secret rules. At the next board meeting, the residents finally call her bluff. Mrs. Geller, 35 years on the block, stands up. I've seen Sarah help my family more times than I can count. Karen, all you do is send angry emails and hide behind your title. Another neighbor holds up the newsletter. You lied. That's not safety, that's reckless. Someone calls for a no confidence vote. 28 votes to remove 2 to keep 1. Abstain. Karen storms out fuming. The next morning Sarah gets a call. Internal Affairs has found years of HOA records signed by Karen alone missing. Required signatures tied to heavy fines, even lawsuits. The city's legal team opens a fraud investigation, and suddenly Karen's unraveling. She goes online posting rants about being persecuted, accusing Sarah of weaponizing the police. Her posts become memes. She tries to sue Sarah for defamation, ironically for intimidation, and the lawsuit is so flimsy. Sarah's brother, Evan, a civil litigator, calls it blog post material. He files a counter so sharp that Karen's attorney asks for a recess and never files a continuation. The case is tossed out in a week. Meanwhile, the new HOA board rolls out a transparency portal. Every decision, every vote public. The board suspends every fine Karen ever issued and forms a committee to rewrite the bylaws. Most neighbors feel like they can finally breathe. No more paranoia, no more walking on eggshells. But Karen, she's not done. She starts slipping anonymous flyers under doors painting Sarah as a rogue cop. Claiming the new board are law enforcement puppets. One nervous neighbor calls the police again after seeing Sarah with her sidearm. This time the responding officer was trained by Sarah, apologizes and leaves. Sarah just writes it up. She's documenting everything now. The city completes its review of HOA finances. Over $75,000 missing, funneled into a sham security firm with no license, no address, probably just a cover for Karen's schemes. Karen claims political persecution, but nobody buys it. Her grip on reality phrase. She's escorted off public property with a megaphone ranting about drones and conspiracies. She starts sending weird emails, one even signed by her ex-treasurer, which is all Sarah needs to get a restraining order. But she doesn't let it distract her. She turns the whole saga into a series of training sessions for the precinct on false reporting and HOA abuse. Eventually Karen vanishes. Her house goes up for sale, then foreclosure. Turns out she used HOA funds as collateral for private loans to fund her security empire. Within 3 months Sarah's back to jogging her morning route. Holster on, neighbors waving, some even saluting. The neighborhood is lighter, friendlier. Kids play in the park again. Block parties come back. Karen is now just a cautionary tale. But the story isn't quite over. The interim board rebuilds, working with the city to ensure transparency and community leadership. Then out of nowhere, an anonymous envelope arrives at City Hall. Doctored photos of Sarah, inflammatory captions, laughably bad fakes. The digital forensics team traces them to Karen's old laptop, the one she turned in during the audit but swapped for a decoy. A warrant leads to her storage unit filled with boxes of HOA property, surveillance drones, files on residents, and a spreadsheet labeled priority control targets. It's a paranoid fantasy made real. The city convenes an emergency meeting. Karen is charged with fraud, illegal surveillance, misuse of funds, and the case balloons into a federal investigation. Her final act is a podcast interview where she paints herself a whistleblower. The podcast editor, another of Sarah's old Ment, sends the unedited footage straight to the DA. Within 48 hours Karen's in court facing jail time. That finally is when peace starts to settle. Kids play outside without looking over their shoulders. Old neighbors start waving again. The HO turns the old enforcement office into a resource library. The city council passes new oversight laws inspired by Sarah's case. Even the mayor jokes at her commendation. If Karen knew who Sarah was, she'd have chosen another neighborhood. Sarah just smiles and says, "I'm glad she didn't. We're better now." On the anniversary of Karen's downfall, we hold a quiet block party. No speeches, no drama, just neighbors being neighbors. At sunset, as music drifts across the lawn, Sarah turns to me and says, the best part of this mess, we didn't just beat her, we got each other back. And honestly, after everything, I couldn't have said it better myself. So here's my call to action. If you've ever dealt with power hungry bullies, petty rules, or seen good people get targeted for doing the right thing, speak up, share your story, and let's talk about where the line is between authority and abuse. What do you think? Where should that line be? Because in the end, it's not about one person winning, it's about all of us getting our neighborhood, our peace, and our dignity.